Today, we'll be discussing one of the most terrifying but also fascinating diseases. Let's talk about Prion disease. Prion disease is characterized by the accumulation of misfolded beta-pleated proteins within the brain matter. Notably, accumulation of these proteins within the brain leads to vacuolization, or the opening of these weird holes on histology within the brain. That's why the encephalopathy associated with this disease is known as Spongiform Encephalopathy, just because the brain matter becomes kind of holey appearing, like a sponge. Eventually, accumulation of these beta-pleated prion proteins along with the cellular vacuoles leads to neural toxicity and ultimately death of the neurons. That's why prion protein can initially present with tremors and motor dysfunction. It can then progress to confusion and cognitive impairment as well as dementia. Neurological function continues to progressively decline until the patient ultimately dies, typically within about a year of symptom onset. The most terrifying part about prion disease is that these completely non-living proteins with no genetic material somehow are able to acquire properties of an infectious organism. Let's take a look at this figure here. Prion protein C, this is our green one right here, is a normal protein found in the brain, and we don't know exactly what it does, but we know that it's supposed to be there. Sometimes prion protein can be misfolded into a beta-pleated conformation and is then dubbed prion protein scrappy, or prion protein SC. Once prion protein SC is formed, it can go on and interact with other normal prion proteins and convert them into the pathologic form. These abnormal prion proteins can then go on to form more prion proteins. This leads to an exponential increase in the amount of prion protein SC that forms and ultimately neurological decline. Now, we don't know much about these proteins, but what we do know is that they're completely resistant to proteolytic degradation, and they're even resistant to typical antiseptic techniques and even autoclaving. In other words, they're almost impossible to destroy under physiologic circumstances. Due to progressive neurological decline, patients typically die within 1 year, and there's also no treatment other than supportive care to prevent this. Patients who live a little bit longer ultimately suffer from severe brain atrophy, as you can see here, and then they ultimately die as well. Prion disease is exceptionally rare, and in most cases arises sporadically or basically out of nowhere in older adults. Prion disease can also be contracted through cannibalizing infected individuals or by receiving contaminated transplants such as corneal transplants. Hope you enjoyed learning about prion disease.